Hi, everybody. Today's webinar is coming on, there was a lot of demand for this, on teaching how to understand present perfect. Now, I know this is a sensitive topic, first of all, because it's about teaching grammar, and nowadays, we are more about teaching for communication, teaching in different styles. We don't want to just teach grammar for the sake of grammar. That's not what we're going to do. It's also sensitive because present perfect is one of those topics that can easily frustrate students, can easily frustrate teachers as well, because the support we get from, well, textbook industry, the definitions that are out there, the exercises that are out there, I don't find are helpful. They're helpful if we want to help our students pass tests, fill in the blanks, things like that. Most of the explanations focus on explaining the construction, explaining the different cases when present perfect is used, but there's no true understanding of what it means to use present perfect in English. I always like to remind my students that if something is pointless in a language, it disappears. If people still use present perfect nowadays, it's because there is a function. It serves a purpose. It helps people's communication in a way, or else they would stop using it. So there is a purpose. There is a function. Present perfect does help our communication. How do we help our students understand, feel this present perfect, and use it fluently in their speech? That is the most important thing we want to do today. We are going to help our students not just understand, but master present perfect. What is the purpose? Why is it helpful in my communication? We want to marry accuracy and fluency all the time. That's only what we do with research education materials. Always, always, always. So let's dive in, because present perfect. Now, first things first, before I go into details of our approach, first things first, what is a good, solid explanation for students? A solid explanation that will help students master something, not just understand it, but master something that will go towards their fluency. I have three criteria. Whenever I find explanations in textbooks nowadays, things like that online, I always have my three criteria to quickly judge if this explanation is solid, if it's going to help my students master something, not just understand something to pass an exam or something like that. I want my students to master it. Three simple criteria. An explanation needs to be clear. It needs to be clear. No questions whatsoever from the students. The words used, the concepts used need to be 100% clear. I will always remember one of the first times I tried teaching past simple, past continuous. So that was back in the days at the beginning of my teaching career. I was using a textbook. I believe it was straightforward. It could have been cutting edge or face-to-face. Anyways, the students were pre-intermediate, and as a young professional, I fully trusted that the definition, the explanation given in the textbook was designed by experts and would truly help my students understand. Remember, these students were pre-intermediate, and the lesson goes well. Honestly, the lesson was well structured. The warmer, the lead-in, everything went well. But then the definition in the textbook came up, and my students read the definition. The explanation said, past continuous is a long action that is interrupted by another action in the past. You should have seen the faces of my students. They all just, teacher, what is interrupt? Like, what pre-intermediate student knows the word interrupt? It might happen, some of them might come up with that word in their education. They might know the word at pre-intermediate level, but in my experience, most pre-intermediate level students, they don't know the word interrupt. So that I should have seen it. It should have been a big red flag to me. This definition, this explanation is not clear to the students. Number one, it has to be clear. The words used, the concepts used need to be clear to the student. Criteria number two, a definition, an explanation has to be consistent. If the explanation we give to our students is riddled with exceptions, students are not going to be able to rely on this explanation to build their reflexes, to develop their fluency. They're going to have doubts. They're going to hesitate. They're going to struggle to master this concept. It's very important to master something. You need to feel the ground below your feet. You need to feel solid. You need to feel safe. My job is to do that, to deliver new knowledge, to help students discover and open new knowledge to themselves in a safe zone. They need to feel confident. So my explanations need to be clear and consistent. They need to be consistent. Last but not least, because you see that the first two criteria, clear and consistent, they're very important. They're essential for students to feel safe and to be able to develop their understanding towards mastery steadily and safely. But as I said at the beginning, there's also the whole question of why, the function. How does this help our communication? And that is the third criteria. A good, solid explanation, definition, needs to show the necessity of this in communication. Why do I need to learn this skill to speak your language? The same goes in any language. I learn Russian. In Russian, there are different cases. I need to understand the point of using cases, because to me, that was not natural at first. I speak English, French, a bit of Spanish. In those languages, there are no cases. So what's the point of cases? And same thing goes the other way. I find for that, one of the most endearing examples for me here in Russia are articles. Russian does not have articles. Russian has cases, but does not have articles, which means that most of our students here struggle with articles. They simply don't have the necessity. It's not logical to them. It's not obvious to them. Why do I need to learn articles? Can't I just speak English without any articles? Won't it be the same? Won't people understand what I want to say? So those are my three golden criteria to judge any explanation, any definition. It needs to be clear. It needs to be consistent. It needs to show necessity. So let's dive in present perfect, because present perfect, there are a lot of lessons in textbooks, online, things like that, that focus mainly on keywords, on time phrases, things like that. They can be clear, they can be consistent. But what is our third criteria? What is the necessity behind present perfect? Let me show you our approach. We're going to explore activities together and how we can help our students master present perfect. So I'm going to simply look for present perfect on my website. There we go. So there are a lot of different explanations for present perfect. Not different explanations, different categories, because we have materials for every need. If you need for just already, for for and since, things like that, you'll find them there. But the golden category, if you do not have to follow somebody else's approach, somebody else's program, if you can teach present perfect, the way you want to teach it, do this. You open the category present perfect explains the situation now, because that is exactly what present perfect does. And we are going to start by helping our students discover this concept on their own. So there are a lot of activities here, but I'm directly going to go to activities we call make assumptions. Let me open this one. It's for B1, B2 level students. And it's the third one. You see, there are a lot of them. It's the third one in that category for that level. This activity, you can read the instructions with me. This activity is made to emphasize the idea that present perfect explains now. Whenever we hear a sentence with present perfect, that person makes certain assumptions. For example, if you hear, I've already eaten lunch, what can you assume? This person is probably not hungry. This person might be saying, hinting at the fact that, hey, you just suggested going to a cafe. I'm fine, thank you. Maybe they're hinting, maybe depending on the intonation and depending on the words around, context is key. They could be saying exactly the opposite. Look at the second example. I've already eaten lunch, but I can't resist chocolate. Maybe here they're just expressing their feeling right now that, oh my God, I've already eaten lunch, but really, I just love chocolate. There's always a lot you can assume, a lot you can read between the lines with a present perfect sentence. And we are going to help our students discover this concept, not especially by teaching, by telling them, but by playing a game like this called Make Assumptions, in which they're going to have cards. If you're doing online, I write these cards in the chat. It's as simple as that. For each of these phrases, we are going to make assumptions. Let's imagine we just hear someone say, he studied program for a year. He studied programming for a year. Okay, very quick context. It might be our boss telling us about somebody new coming into the team. I don't know much about programming. I would assume that if he studied programming for a year, I don't think he's an expert. I think he's probably a newbie. He's going to be a new addition to our team. He's going to need some help adapting and everything like that. What do you think? Any other assumptions? Imagine your boss is telling you this. He studied programming for a year. This might be a good thing. I think the boss here is hinting to me that it's not a lot of experience. This guy is not an expert yet. He's going to need help. Those are my assumptions. She's been working there we go. She's been working as a programmer for 8 years. Again, let's think about assumptions. So, now, I assume she's got some experience. She's probably specialized in 1 or 2 languages. She obviously knows what she's talking about. She's probably worked for more than 1 company or more than 1 project. If she's been working as a programmer for 8 years, I think it's likely to assume that she's a bit of a nerd or a geek. She's probably into all those Big Bang Theory world things like science fiction, Star Trek, Star Wars, maybe into fantasy as well. Those are my assumptions. They might be wrong. I always remind my students, guys, assuming does not mean we know the truth. But this is what happens when we hear present perfect. He's never cooked food. He's never cooked his own food. What can you assume? Well, I don't know where he's been, but he's obviously been cuddled. He's obviously been taken care of. Now, we were just talking about nerdy things and things like that. If this is in Game of Thrones, let's assume this guy is a nobleman. This guy is very wealthy or something like that. Coming back to real life, well, I would assume it might be a bit sexist of me, but I would assume here he has a mother who's all over him. She is taking very, very good care of him. Every tiny little thing, tiny little aspect of his life. That's just a little assumption I'm making. She has broken all the records in the sport. Well, she is obviously a force to reckon with. She's obviously someone you want to remember. This is a name that most people will know around the world. And she's obviously very good at her sport. We found John. What can you assume? Well, John was missing. First of all, I think John was missing. I don't know for how long. He could have been. This could have been serious. He could have been kidnapped. It might simply have been an unfortunate party where John got a little bit too drunk, disappeared. We couldn't find him. Finally, somebody found him sleeping somewhere. I don't know. We found John. John might not be a person, actually. What if John was a pet? I had a dog for many years, a lovely border collie who would, well, a border collie, you can never walk a border collie enough, I have the impression. Like, we would walk, and I went from a family of 3 brothers, so all 3 of us, we walked the dog. It was never enough. The dog would just go off in the countryside for a day or 2 for big, long walks, and finally come back, and we would say, we found, let's say, John, if that was John. So John could be a pet. She hasn't called me since our date. What can you assume? The date probably didn't go that well. She might not want a second date or third. There's no information that this was the first date, but I'm pretty sure the date didn't go that well. It sounds like I felt the date went well, but obviously it didn't go that well for her. Now, we never know again. Other assumptions, she's lost her phone. She's too shy to talk to me. Maybe she's waiting for me to make the call. Maybe I haven't called her and she's just waiting for me to make that call. This little game of making assumptions is a great way for students to start grasping this concept that present perfect explains the situation now. Whenever we hear present perfect, we make assumptions. We read between the lines. Why is it that a past action would be put into a present tense? It's obviously a present tense. So the past is not important. We don't care when or why it happened. What matters is our situation now. Present perfect is always filled with meaning about now. And that is exactly what our students are doing in this type of exercise. It is really simple. Really, we're not reinventing the wheel here. It's not overly complicated. All we're doing is feeding our students examples of present perfect sentences and asking the students to make assumptions. It is really important because this is a very English thing to do. In English style communication, we are not that direct. There's a lot of implying. There's a lot of hinting. I always love the example of, it's been lovely talking to you. What is the difference between saying, it is lovely talking to you, it was lovely talking to you? Why would somebody say it in present perfect, it's been lovely talking to you? That phrase is full of meaning. It's saying, yes, it was nice talking to you, but you know what? Time to go. I've got something to do. For whatever reason, and depending on the intonation, we agree that there are different levels of this reading between the lines, depending on the intonation as well. The person might also be saying, look, it wasn't lovely talking to you and I'm trying to get away from here. But the one true thing, the one sure thing you can assume from it's been lovely talking to you is that the person is trying to say goodbye. The person is just not direct enough to just say, Antoine, you know what? I gotta go. Bye-bye. They're hinting at it, they're implying it. Oh, I haven't eaten for a while. If I say this, near you in your home, I'm pointing out to the fact that you should offer me some food maybe, or I'm hinting that I'd like to go into that cafe, something like that. Now, I agree, it's not the most effective communication. Sometimes we need to be more direct, but sometimes as well, we need to be a bit subtle, not to offend others. And I find this is an essential tool in multicultural communication. It is great to be able to hint, imply things without being too direct, because when we're too direct, we run the risk of insulting, offending some people. You never know. Our world is very rich. There's so many wonderful cultures. There's so many different manners. We can't learn them all. The best we can do is be polite, be open-minded, and hint, imply something subtly and see the reaction. And if the reaction is what we expected, we can go further on. If not, we come back, we retract. This is one of the first concepts our students can grasp in present perfect. So my lesson plan for present perfect is always to start by an activity, make assumptions. Give your students these present perfect sentences. Get your students in pairs, in groups, to make assumptions and lead them to this conclusion that present perfect is always an action in the past that explains the situation now. The most important part of the present perfect is now, not the past. It's not a past tense, it's a present tense. I've lost my keys. If I say this and you don't immediately offer to help me, then I'm going to assume you're rude, because you know what? It doesn't matter that I lost them. What matters is that right now I can't get into my home or my car. Right now, that's what matters. Start with these activities, make assumptions, go over the concept and do it a second time, a second make assumption activity. Your students are going to have loads of fun with these make assumption activities, and they are really going to develop a mastery for present perfect. Only after such activities was I able to get my students to really master it and use it naturally, fluently. So they first make assumptions, and we go over this concept of present perfect explains now. Then we are going to do something. You see now, for now, students have only played with present perfect. They haven't really produced any present perfect themselves. Now is the time for the students to play a little bit with it. And we are going to start with explain the feeling. As we said, present perfect, the definition, present perfect, explains the situation now. So we're going to want to lead to that. But at the beginning, it might be a bit tricky for students to immediately take a situation, a real life context, and try to come up with a present perfect sentence that is going to imply this. So we are simply going to start with explain the feeling. This is much simpler. The procedure, put the students into pairs or small groups. Student A chooses a card without telling anyone else in the group, okay? For example, nervous. A makes a sentence with present perfect that explains the feeling. I haven't studied for a very important test. The partners try to guess which feeling it was. There's another way of doing the activity. The students don't have to know all of these feelings. So we've done nervous. What are we going to do? Excited. I've just bought tickets to the concert of my favorite band. I didn't think there were any tickets left. The concert is tomorrow. I've just bought tickets to my favorite band. Yes, I'm excited. You're absolutely right. Well, honestly, I've listened to this lecture like about 50 times. And Antoine has never changed it. He's always said exactly the same thing. Yeah. I'm definitely bored. I've heard it many times. He hasn't changed a thing in his presentation or in his explanations. I'm clearly bored. You see, I can hint to my feeling with present perfect sentences. In love. I've never met such a girl. I've never felt this way before. It's confused. I haven't heard. I've heard you say this, but I've heard her say that. So I'm confused. Explain the feeling. It's a great activity, and again, like make assumptions, we've prepared quite a lot of these for different levels. Explain the feeling. You've got 2 for B2 plus here, 1 for C1. There's some for B1, B2 level. You see, all different feelings that our students might be feeling and that our students might try to hint at, try to imply to others using present perfect. Well, I've been cutting onions. Crying. Perfect. I've been cutting onions. Crying. So this is I forgot. I didn't point out. There's paranoid. I love that one. It's loads of fun. Students have come up with great ideas about paranoid. I've just seen someone following me, and they've been following me for days and days. I've been kidnapped by aliens. Explain the feeling. Make assumptions. Go over the concept. Explain the feeling. Students are really getting now a mastery. They're not just understanding, but they're ready to use present perfect naturally, fluently. Let's move on. After explaining the feeling, let's actually explain the situation now. A very similar procedure. You put the students into pairs, small groups. Student A chooses one of the situations in the chart without telling anyone else in the group. He makes a sentence with present perfect that explains the situation, and A's partners try to guess which of the situations in the chart A when in the chart A is explaining. My friend is angry with me. I haven't called her for 6 months. Something like that. Which one? Which one am I going to pick? I've got a bit of a headache. Yes, and it's kind of true. I need to lie down for a little while. It's been raining the entire day. I'm hinting that I don't think it's a good day to go to the park. You see, in very natural conversations, this is exactly the kind of thing that would happen. We're talking together. You're trying to convince me. You're telling me, "Oh, come on, let's go to the park for the afternoon. Let's have a little picnic." I don't need to say I don't think it's a good idea to go to the park. If I just say, "What are you talking about? It's been raining the whole day." You naturally understand that I don't think it's a good idea to go to the park. This is very, very important. This is present perfect explains the situation now in all of its glory. I love this. These are great activities to do with students, and there are really a lot of different ones. The higher the level, the more difficult it is, of course. And this is not something that our students are going to master in one lesson, of course, in one academic hour. But it is definitely the most effective and the most efficient way to teach fluent use of present perfect that I've seen in my experience. If you have a better way, a more effective, more efficient way of teaching fluent present perfect, please let me know. Tom and I will always be interested in that. More situations. I love my job. I hate Arnold. Oh gosh. Some of these cards still make me laugh after all this time. I hate Arnold. I'm an excellent engineer. I'm going to, you see, I'm an excellent engineer is a very, very natural context, a very real life context. If I'm in a job interview, I need to convince these people to hire me. You know what? I've been working for an engineer for over 25 years. I've designed so many types of machinery. I've been head of engineering at, I don't know what company resource education for 15 years. And we all know what wonderful piece of engineering resource education does, right? All these things I'm hitting that I'm an excellent engineer. Same thing if we're in a more personal context, if we're having a talk about, I don't know, we're gossiping and everything. We're gossiping about colleagues. One of our colleagues is Arnold. Nothing to do with Schwarzenegger. Nothing. I mean, even in his old age, I'm pretty sure that if he's angry with me, he can. So it's just Arnold, all right? Just Arnold. I hate Arnold. How could I hint that I hate Arnold? I've never really liked him. That's not a very subtle way, but it's a very natural way. We've always had our differences. Now that's a more subtle way. We've always had our differences. We've never really totally understood each other. We've never really seen eye to eye. You see, in those ways, I'm not saying so strongly, I hate Arnold, but I'm hinting to the people around me that we don't get along that well. And if they start saying similar things, I can expand on my gossip. You see, so I've hinted a little bit at my problem with Arnold, but I've also given myself the possibility to retreat just in case, hey, what if these people are Arnold's best friends? I don't know. So present perfect is really a very useful tool in communication. And you see, make assumptions, explain the feeling, explain the situation. These three activities, even though we're not getting into production activities yet, into real life situations, these three type of activities are the surest way, the most effective, the most efficient way to teach fluent present perfect. We don't need to get into all the exceptions, cases, things like that, because it always works. It is consistent. I've yet to come across an example of present perfect that does not explain the situation now. You can use present perfect with already, with yet, with just, with for, with since, present perfect continuous if you like. They always explain the situation now. Let's get into a bit more real life. We're getting closer now to production type activities. I want to show you I'm number one. So I showed I'm number one 2 days ago. I'm going to choose this one. No, B1, B2. I think I showed this one. So just to not be bored, I don't want to show always the exact same one. So I'm going to pick this one, B2 plus, I think. So I'm number one is a really fun type of activity. We're getting into more speaking, and now there's a bit more of a challenge between students. Why? This is actually pretty typical. I'm number one. Students are going to boast a bit, you know? They're going to battle who's number one. So here's the procedure. You put the students into pairs or small groups. Student A takes a card from the best card. A reads the card aloud and says a sentence in present perfect that supports the fact that they are number one in the way described on the card. I'm the worst car driver. I'm the worst race car driver. I have been in thousands of accidents. Now that supports his claim. A's partners are going to respond with their own present perfect sentences that refute A's position at the top. So they can either focus on them being worse or focus on him not being that bad. I'm way worse than you are. I've never even learned how to drive, and yet I'm a race car driver. That's how bad I am. And they go back and forth like this until they agree who is the worst race car driver among them. It's going to last, typically, one card is going to last 3-4 interactions maximum. And then they kind of agree to disagree or agree that one or the other is the best because they had the best idea. Let me show you some examples. I'm the best artist. I am the worst at waking up. I'm literally the worst at waking up. I mean, I've woken up late every single day for the past 6 months. And this morning, I've I've been pressing on my snooze button every 5 minutes. Every 5 minutes. Snooze. There you go. I don't know. I'm the worst at waking up. Come up with your examples. I'm a good scientist. I'm an incredible cook. I'm better at technology than anyone. I am an amazing farmer. I'm an amazing farmer. I've learned to talk, discuss, converse with every single animal farm animal there is in the whole world. I'm a better farmer than you are. I hate coffee. That's going to upset a lot of students. I know, and some teachers too. I am the most irresponsible person you know. Students are going to get very creative with this one. So, you might have noticed while I was scrolling down, these are referenced in lesson plans because, so on the website, you'll find your lesson plans as well. Lesson 1, lesson 2, things like that. This is really an approach that has completely changed my teaching of present perfect. Make assumptions, explain the feeling, explain the situation now, I'm number one, and then we can get into production type activities. So I really love this filter system. It really helps my preparation. My preparation is so much faster now. Celebrity personal assistant. I love this one. Students are going to interview each other. They're trying to hire a personal assistant for a celebrity that they manage. So let's say I'm student A and I get this first card, group 1, the Purple Clouds. I am the manager for a band, the Purple Clouds. They're looking for a personal assistant to help them on their tours. Here's what is important to the band. They only eat green M&Ms and 2 kilos of them before every concert. The singer Paul requires foot massage after every concert. 3 rabbits travel with the band. They should be walked every day. The Purple Clouds drink 3 liters of a certain brand of energy drink before every show. So I'm responsible for the happiness and success of this band. I need to find the best personal assistant. Well, first I'm going to come up with a few questions to ask. So this production activity, like any production activity, starts with a bit of preparation time. Solo or in groups, you can have all the group managers brainstorm questions together, or solo. I'm going to think, okay, so well, typical questions. Have you managed a band before? If you have, what kind of if you have managed a band before, what little crazy things did that band have? Because it's quite typical for celebrities to have their own little craziness. Did the band ever? Have you ever given a foot massage to someone? Have you ever walked rabbits? Have you ever taken care of pets? These questions, so I'm student A, I'm preparing these questions, and then after the preparation, we put students together in pairs and groups, and there we go. Student A asks this question and student B answers. So have I managed any bands? Of course I have. Of course I have. I've managed a lot of bands. The best of all, I mean, I was the personal manager of the Beatles. That's absolutely right. I know I look quite young for a Beatles manager, but hey, that's how great I am. That's how great I am. So yes, I managed the band. I managed the Beatles. Have I taken care of pets? Absolutely, absolutely. I just told you I managed the Beatles. I managed the Beatles, and you must know that Paul McCartney has his own kind of farm in Farm Cottage in England. He's a vegetarian. He loves animals. I took care. I helped Paul with yeah. I call him Paul. I know we're friends. Not Sir Paul McCartney. Not Paul McCartney. I call him Paul. I managed his life for so many years. I took care of his goat. He's got a wonderful goat. It's on a picture of one of his albums. So yeah, I've done all of that, etc., etc. I don't remember all the questions I brainstormed at the beginning. So student A interviews student B, and then maybe student C, and then maybe student D. They are going to practice their present perfect a lot. In job interviews are typical example of good use of present perfect. And sorry. And it's going to be the job of the student B, who's answering the question, to prove. You see, we're going beyond. We start with I'm number one, and then we go to a more real life situation, because that's what you want to do in a job interview. Show that, yes, you are the ideal person for this job. So here are the different celebrities. There are different kind of production activities, and we design new activities every week. Employees future, I really like this one. This is loads of fun, and this is very efficient and effective to master present perfect. Student A takes 2-3 bad employee cards. Student B takes 2-3 good employee cards. A begins the conversation against the employee, citing reasons for why B should not work with the company. B defends the employee based on the information on his or her cards. So here, depending on your students, that really depends on, I find it depends on the context of your students. If you're teaching corporate client and these people are actually colleagues, you don't want them to discuss firing each other. So in this case, student A and student B are two managers discussing a third employee. But in a different context, it's a lot of fun. And actually teenagers, I found teenagers have loads of fun with this. If student A is the boss and student B is the bad employee that is trying to keep their job, it's going to give you a very dynamic conversation between both students, where student B is doing everything he can or she can to convince student A to give me a second chance. Come on, look at the bad employee cards. I mean, it's all a matter of perspective. The employee broke the drink machine. The employee fell asleep in a meeting. This employee has relationship problems with several coworkers. This employee never stays late. This employee doesn't dress professionally. It's a matter of perspective, and you can always argue, no, look at the good employee cards. Yes, I don't dress appropriately, but I've gotten lots and lots of good contracts for the company. We've got to weigh the pros and the cons here. And the students are going to have a very natural conversation. Either, as I said, student B defending himself, trying to keep his job, or just two managers discussing a third employee, a third person. This employee has a family to support. Very good point. Very good point. This employee knows everyone in the company. This employee always meets deadlines. So this is a production activity I absolutely love for present perfect. So I'm going to just look, these work as tags. I'm just click on production, and production disappears from the filters. It's beautiful. I love it. Sorry, I'm just There are a lot of different types of activities. Explain game, explain the feeling, explain the situation. I highly recommend this. And I forgot to show you. No, I didn't. Sorry. As I said, we have started making more and more lesson plans to help you, because in this time, a lot of us are teaching online for the first time, or we're gaining experience in everything. So these lesson plans are adapted for teaching offline and online. All the activities are adapted for offline and online. There you have it. This is our approach to teach fluent use of present perfect. Not just understanding, but actually using present perfect in a natural, fluent way. We're not here focused on just helping our students pass their exams, get through school, get to a good university. We are helping our students here grasp, master present perfect, so that they can use it to the benefit of their communication. That is why our students are learning a language. That is why we are helping our students. We're helping them to better their communication. Present perfect is a great, great tool in English. It is very, very, it might seem like a cultural aspect, but you see now that it's not so much just a culture, it's just a certain level of communication. Of course, we can always say things directly. And in personal life, we should, in our family, with our friends. It's more important to be direct in those cases. But there are a lot of other cases of communication in the world, multicultural, professional, where we need a tool like this. We need a tool where we can hint, we can imply without taking too many risks. We're hinting at things because it makes that communication just so much more elegant, more subtle. It gives us a possible exit. This is the level of language that you hear with diplomats, things like that. In professional context, in business communication. Our students need to master this, especially at B1, B2 level. This is an essential part of English. Present perfect explains the situation now. This solid explanation is clear, it is consistent, and it shows necessity. It really works like a charm. It has completely changed the way my students master present perfect. My students now are fluent users. They really can play with it depending on the goals of their conversation, depending on the goals of their communication. So there you have it. Present perfect explains the situation now. If you have any questions, any comments, you always know that you can easily contact me here through messages. In messages, you can start composing a message. I'll be the first one there, Antoine Marc. You can write to me on our website. You can also answer my emails, antoine@resourceeducation.com. It's exactly like right here. And you can contact me on all the social networks, of course. I'm on Contacte, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram apparently now as well. It blows my mind. Contact me anywhere you like if you have any questions, any comments on this. These materials are still free for now during this crisis, during this difficult situation for all of us. As I've said, it is expensive for us to keep this open, free, full access for everyone. There are thousands of teachers there. It is a bit expensive for us. We are going to continue for as long as we can with Tom and Artyom. We've sat down, we've calculated, we can keep this on for a little while, but we are going to move back to subscription soon. at minimal rate, okay? The subscription is not going to be like before. We still need to support each other in these difficult times. Unfortunately, we can't. We don't want to close this because it becomes too expensive to us. So we are going to move to a minimal subscription. Minimal, really, nothing compared to what was before. Let us know if you are still struggling, if you can't afford it, things like that. Feel free to contact me, all right? The most important to us is open communication. We're here to give you the best teacher support, not only that you need, but also that you deserve. I like reminding teachers of that as well. You know what? You deserve good teacher support. You deserve good materials. You deserve solid explanations, solid definitions, quality materials that really make your teaching more effective and your lesson preparation more efficient. You're allowed to have a life. On this, I'll close today's webinar. Write if you have any questions, any comments on these activities, and we're going to continue developing more lesson plans and more activities to upload to the website. Bye-bye and enjoy the weekend.